I don't know whether I've started or not. Peradventure, I've started. That's a word you don't hear very often. Peradventure. Uh, it can mean doubt, or more accurately, it's injecting an element of perhaps, perhaps not. Peradventure. And so today's talk is about reincarnation. And I'm taking the material from a letter that I answered someone concerning reincarnation. And every once in a while I need to revisit the subject. In particular, I've been going over a workshop I'm doing on reincarnation, which I've already got a Zoom recording of it out there someplace. I think the Magical Egypt people still market it. But many, many, many years ago, we discovered during like a 3-year Enochian magic ongoing Enochian magic workshop that the particular ruling angel from the Tablet of Union, that's the Master Union, the equivalent of the Archangel of Archangels. It'd be the equivalent if you put the 4 classic archangels of Raphael, Gabriel, Michael, and Uriel. If you put them all together into one angel, that would be the EHNB off of the Tablet of Union. But just quite by accident, during a scrying session, it occurred to me to ask the EHNB if it was aware of the circumstances of what we would consider a previous incarnation. And he or it answered that indeed it could, but that reincarnation wasn't quite exactly as we think of it. He said, "Yeah, oh yeah, it's real, but it's not the way you think, really." But nevertheless, EHNB, and if you're an Enochian practitioner and haven't tried this, invoking or working with EHNB can provoke in you or stimulate in you visions of your own previous incarnations. So just a word for you Enochian folks, if you haven't tried EHNB for insight on previous incarnations, give him a try. But anyway, and I'll talk about it in my answer to this person's general letter about reincarnation. But anyway, I got to get going. So here it is, and you can find letters such as this in Ask Babylon, Answers to Questions of Life and Magic. And this is one of the books that I do with New Falcon Publications. I addressed what the question was in my answer, so I'm just going to start with my answer. Do I believe in reincarnation? The answer is a very qualified yes. Do I believe that it's possible for one person to be present in 2 bodies at the same time? The answer is also a very qualified yes. Do I believe that a magician has to believe in reincarnation in order to work effectively? The answer is a very unqualified no. And now I'll probably make you sorry you opened up this can of worms, because I have a few moments this morning to think out loud about this subject. I hope you're comfortable. Perhaps you might like to open a beer or pour yourself a glass of wine, because Here comes a rambling rant on why I answered two of your questions with a qualified yes. You are correct. In my book, My Life with the Spirits, I write about my infant memories of what I would later in life speculate were scenes from previous incarnations. As an example, trench warfare of World War I, myself living in the Pacific Palisades area of Los Angeles in the late 20s or early 30s, and a night drive down the Pacific Coast Highway for a lover's rendezvous in Ensenada, Mexico. As I mentioned in the book, I experienced these memory visions when I was 2 and 3 years old, 1950 and 51. During the months, I was confined to my crib because of a debilitating bone disease. At the time, I had yet to see a movie, watch television, or view any photographs that would trigger or influence such memories. I also mentioned in the book that during a particularly dramatic psychedelic experience in Southern California, in the Southern California desert in 1967, my brother Mark and I simultaneously identified ourselves as being two of our father's uncles who lived in the Los Angeles area and who died years before either of us came on the scene. Both uncles were involved in the early motion picture industry, one being for a time the private secretary to producer-director Hal Roach. The idea that we might indeed be our own great uncles, of course, raised the possibility that instead of being memories of a previous incarnation, these impressions might have been something to do with genetic memory, if there is such a thing. I might have something more to say about that in a moment. When I was in college, I was hypnotized by a licensed hypnotherapist, a great guy. We both attended a comparative religion class in college, and we met because I knew I could score LSD from this guy. This is 1966, 67. Okay. But I digress. I was hypnotized by a licensed hypnotherapist and regressed to a previous life. I recalled my death, which occurred when I fell from a high wire while attempting to walk a tightrope. Many years later, psychic David P. Wilson, or S. Jason Black, who was completely unaware of my teenage hypnotic adventure, during an Enochian magic scrying session, saw me die in a previous incarnation as I fell from a rope or a wire I was attempting to walk on. And that particular session was with EHNB off the Tablet of Union. Of course, there's no way for me to prove any of my possible previous incarnations, and frankly, even if I could prove I was my own great uncle, or Jack the Ripper, or Cleopatra, I'd still be stuck with the concept that I am now, have always been, and will ever be the incarnation of no one but myself. Time as we normally perceive it is very fragile, and exists only in a very narrow band of the consciousness spectrum. It's so delicate that we break it every time we fall asleep. Have you ever taken what you thought was a short nap only to discover you've been sleeping for many hours? Or the other way around? If the rules of time can get themselves so messed up during our daily sleep cycle, just imagine how much differently they operate during death consciousness, if there is indeed such a thing. quantum physicists are suggesting that a particle of matter can be in two or more places at the same time. Is it any more a stretch of the imagination to posit that one thing can exist simultaneously in two or more times? That is what I mean when I say that I am the reincarnation of no one but myself. It cannot be otherwise. Your affinity with that departed writer is the questioner said that he had an affinity with a deceased writer, but they were both alive at the same time. So, your affinity with that departed writer is obviously very real. It might not matter at all that you and he were alive for a while at the same time. Time does not exist. In one respect, all of us, past, present, and future, are alive at the same moment. In Thelema, immortality is viewed as being nothing more or less than the consciousness of the continuity of existence. Humor me while I quote from my own book. I do that all the time. Angels, Demons, and Gods of the New Millennium. Do you have that one? It's for sale. Here's the quote. The age-old search for eternal life is really the quest to attain consciousness of the continuity of existence. Immortality is the prize for those who would achieve this state of consciousness. From this enlightened vantage point, one no longer counts the string of spiraling incarnations as separate or even sequential episodes of experience. Rather, they are perceived as projected concurrently. One wall-to-wall reenactment of a single master adventure with specific and recognizable characters, ordeals, and crisis points. These crises are initiations. And the cast of recurring characters who populate this personal epic are our initiating officers. It's pretty much useless to try to understand with your mind how you seem to be continuing the work of someone who appears to be someone other than yourself. If it suits your purpose to accept it as a fact, then do so. When you need to go somewhere in a car, you don't waste time trying to reconstruct every minute detail of how the car came to be, or relive the complex history of how that car got into your possession. In order to get to where you're going, you need only to get in the car and go. It's obvious to me that you believe you are going in the same direction as this person. That is your work. That your work is the continuation of his or her work. So don't waste time worrying about how your vehicle got here. Just get in and go. But go where? Obviously, why am I here? Is the most important question one can ask oneself in this present incarnation. But there are other questions, lots of questions. If I lived 1,000 times before, what do those other lives mean to me now? Am I my own ancestors? Is that what ancestor worship, a universal and very popular doctrine, is that what ancestor worship's all about? Is reincarnation just some strange sleight of hand phenomenon of consciousness, an interdimensional marriage of DNA and quantum physics? If I change myself in the present, Am I simultaneously changing my past and my future? Now there's a thought. I hope you don't think me too crazy for what I'm about to share with you. It's a story that seems particularly appropriate to this discussion, especially because of what happened to me this morning. But for the story to make any sense at all, I'm going to have to give you a little background information. And you know what? I'm going to give you that background information in tomorrow's talk. Until tomorrow, continue to be good to yourself and be good to each other. Do what thou wilt shall be the whole of the law. Love is the law. Love under will.